For the past few weeks, we've been on the subject of 5 deadly mindsets that must be removed and dealt with in our life if we're going to live the more intentional life and become the best possible version of ourselves. Now, up to this point, we've talked about a victim mindset, an entitlement mindset, a scarcity mindset, and a deficiency mindset. You can check those out down in the description. But today, we're covering the last of the deadly mindsets, which is the fixed mindset. So let's talk about it. So, what is a fixed mindset? A fixed mindset to me is very similar to a deficiency mindset, which, if you didn't watch the deficiency mindset, you can check it out right there. But the deficiency mindset and the fixed mindset is this belief that this is just who I am. This is how it's always been. I could never do this. I could never have this. I'm not smart enough. I don't have, I'm missing some ability. I could never do X, whatever that thing is. The difference between the deficiency mindset and the fixed mindset to me is the deficiency mindset sees a lack, sees a gap in ability or whatever, believes that's an insurmountable gap, but still wishes they could do it. Whereas what I've seen is someone who what I would consider had a fixed mindset. They believe, just like the deficiency mindset, this is just the way it is. This is just how I was made. This is who I am. This will never change. But they're apathetic to it. It's like the deficiency mindset says, I can't, but I wish I could. And the fixed mindset is so hopeless and has resigned themselves to that state or that condition where they say, I can't and whatever. And it is a fixed mindset that just says this is the way that it is and it will always be. And they've stayed there so long that they've become numb to it, that they've even lost the desire to try. That, to me, is the difference between a deficiency mindset and a fixed mindset. Now, if you're somebody who has believed, I could never have a thing, I could never do a thing, and you're looking, well, do I have a deficiency mindset or do I have a fixed mindset? I would do what I call the shrug test. You need to ask yourself, in this area where I feel like I could never have or I could never do I still wish I could? Or you're just like, you're numb to it. One of the things that when we're talking about mindsets, right? It really is. I mean, look at the word. Your mind is set. When I think of mindsets, I think of, back in old days, they had what were called strongholds, right? And what a stronghold was, is it was like a fortress or it was a fort or whatever that was fortified against attack. And you could have some strongholds that were heavily fortified, and you could have some that were less fortified, but it's a stronghold. And so what the fixed mindset is, it is this deficiency mindset set in stone to where it's heavily fortified. I think the way I kind of picture it is, if you ever watch the Lord of the Rings, I think it's the second movie, The Two Towers, when they're in Helm's Deep and they have this gigantic fortification, right? They have this giant stronghold that all the orcs are coming against, and they're standing on the towers and they're shooting the arrows and all of that. When you have a fixed mindset, it really is like that stronghold of Helm's Deep. It's so heavily fortified that there's no hope of getting through that wall, so why even try? So now, why is this so harmful? Well, number one, a fixed mindset will cause you to lose your ability to dream, or it will cause you to lose the ability to even have vision for something greater. At the very least, when you have a deficiency mindset, you can see other people and you can say, oh man, I wish I could have that. And at the very least, there's still, because there's a desire toward that, there's still a little glimmer of hope at least. Whereas the fixed mindset is just like, I can't even dream of that anymore because I've been so beat down with life. I've been so beat down with this. My thinking has beat me down into I could never have this, to the point where I'm hopeless and I don't even allow myself to dream anymore. The second reason it's so harmful, again, like the deficiency mindset, is when you believe you can't, you'll stop trying, but The fixed mindset has the added hardship or impossibility of you don't even care to try. You become apathetic to it. And when you become even apathetic to the idea of growth and you don't try, you become stuck in life. You become immobilized. And the place that when you're talking about a fortification, the place you build that stronghold, you now live there. You can't grow on there. And the last thing that I think is probably one of the most harmful things about getting to this place where you are really have a fixed mindset is when you are so apathetic to it, you can pass it on to others. A lot of people pass on this mindset to their children. In our last video on the deficiency mindset, we talked about you can have the deficiency mindset instilled in you from a very young age. Often a child has the deficiency mindset instilled into their minds because their parent has a fixed mindset. Their parent is not trying to change, not trying to grow, and so they are putting that into their children. The fixed mindset feeds others a deficiency mindset, and if they stay in that deficiency mindset long enough, they will themselves become a fixed mindset, and it becomes a generational death loop, if you will, where whole generations of families and whole cultures of people get stuck in one area and don't grow and don't increase and don't change and don't succeed, don't become the best possible versions of themselves because they've allowed themselves to get into this fixed mindset. Now, the mindset that we need to replace the fixed mindset with is a growth mindset. We have to have a mindset of, I'm not stuck anywhere. I can continue to grow. I can continue to learn. What I don't have, I can get. You combine this with what we talked about in the last video, a capacity mindset of I have the capacity to get everything I need. And with the growth mindset, that's the motivation to fill up that capacity to get everything you need. The growth mindset is a willingness to keep on going, keep on trying, keep on learning. And if you keep on failing, you keep on getting up. That's the growth mindset. The fixed mindset says, I'm not even going to try. The growth mindset says, come hell or high water, I'm moving forward. I'm going to grow. But now the question is, if someone has a growth mindset to the point that they don't even care to try. The deficiency mindset, again, at least cares. That the fixed mindset has become so resigned to their situation, their circumstance, their condition, that they're apathetic to even try to change a thing. How do you reach somebody like that? Well, often people with a fixed mindset may need professional help. And when I'm talking about professional help, that could be counseling, that could be the natural side of things, or it could be professional help from a spiritual side of things. They might need a spiritual advisor. They might need a pastor. They might need a minister. Other times, to get somebody out of a fixed mindset, you might need a big, massive change. You might require a giant disruption. Often when you talk about like people realizing that they have allowed themselves to get in a fixed mindset, sometimes it's the fact that there's a big life change. Sometimes they have a child and they realize, if I don't change something, I'm going to pass this on to my child. Sometimes something happens in their life so big that it shakes them out of that fixed mindset. Going back to the Lord of the Rings analogy, right? When the orcs finally got through the wall of Helm's Deep, it took a gigantic explosion that no one had ever seen before to get through that fortification. So sometimes the fixed mindset, to get somebody to even begin the process of going from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset, they need something that requires them to look up and out. Often the fixed mindset is looking inward of everything I don't have, everything I can't do, and I don't even care about it anymore because it's so far a foregone conclusion. But often if you begin to look out, you will find a reason why to care again. And then the last thing someone can do to begin to get rid of this fixed mindset, when you're looking up and out instead of looking inward, you have the opportunity to recognize there are people in your condition or even in worse condition with worse circumstances. Started off in a worse family under worse circumstances, having less resources, and they made it. You can get evidence by looking out that you've believed a lie. You believed it was impossible, but by looking out, you can actually say, okay, I thought it was impossible, but that person did it, and that person did it, and that person did it. And again, what it does is it reignites a spark that was lost. But it's not easy. The fixed mindset really is almost the end of the five deadly mindsets. It's the fortified wall that you're now stuck in that's going to take something big. But now, as a Christian, I believe in divine intervention. I believe that God cares for people, even for those that may not know him or believe in him. And I believe that some of these people who get out of the fixed mindset, it's because God had somebody praying for them, and somebody came into their life that caused that major disruption. And when it comes to God, all things are possible to him. You talk about the fortification and how big of an issue it is to break down these strongholds. Well, you can go to the story of Jericho and find out that there's no stronghold God can't get through. And some of you with a fixed mindset might need help from God. And you might say, I don't believe God, Chris. Well, you might not, but he's still there, ready to willing to help you. And there are things, this channel is personal development from a Christian mindset. We've talked about in the past that I don't make this completely ministry focused, because there are certain things, there are certain truths, spiritual truths that will work for anybody, whether they're a believer or not. But there are some things where you just get to the end of yourself. You get to the end of your own ability, and you need divine help. And divine help is available for you. And if you've gotten into the place that you feel hopeless, that you have this fixed mindset, this is my condition, there's nothing I can do about it, I don't even bother watching other personal development channels. This is not for the person trying to live the more intentional life. This is the person, you've stumbled across this in some way, shape, or form, and you somehow got to this point. And I'm telling you, this is by divine appointment. God can help you out of this. But you then have to take the rest of the steps. And the rest of the steps are doing the natural progression, changing your way you're thinking, reframing your thinking, changing your mind, and believing for the help of God to get you out of this fixed mindset, because these are deadly mindsets. Your dreams are dying, your hopes are dying, your future and your children's future and your children's future, children's children's future could die if you don't deal with this fixed mindset. If you want to learn more about the rest of these five deadly mindsets, you can check out this playlist right here. But until I see you again, go out and live that more intentional life.